Maria, you've got to go with me. I told the man I would come. Oh, you know, just talking about the funeral thing just makes me so nervous. So
Me too.
come hold my hand. You know, there may be cookies. It'll be fun. Well,
Fun.
I doubt it'll be fun, but it should be interesting. Come on.
Okay. I will go with you. I just hope it's not like one of those timeshare things where they just keep trying to sell you no matter what you say.
No, it's supposed to be informational. It's a way to plan or think about planning for your future and what it'll be like in your mind. Who knows, we might learn something.
Okay.
Well, good evening. Thank you all for coming tonight. I want to thank you for spending a few minutes of your time with me this evening. I know that this topic isn't everyone's favorite, although I hope the cookies and the drinks were on your list of favorites, though. Okay, now by a show of hands, how many people in this room think they are not going to die? You know, it's funny. That's the response I always get. The irony here, of course, is that although all of us know we're going to die at some point, few of us acknowledge it or do anything to plan for it. Now, we didn't have anything to say about how we made our entry into this world, but we do have something to say about how we make our exit, at least as how it relates to our funeral plans. Now, I don't have an interest in just standing up here talking to you all night. What I'd like to do is open up the discussion and have all of you participate in it. This seems to be the best way to discuss end-of-life issues. Now, as I look around the room, I see it's fairly obvious that you've all been around the block a few times and you've probably had a chance to ponder some of life's mysteries. So, as you look back on your life, what's been your greatest fear? Yes, Pat.
I guess it's leaving this world without making it easier for someone else to live. That's my ultimate goal. And that's why I try to resolve my own issues and to not be a burden on my family and friends.
Yes, Alan.
What do I fear? Honestly, nothing. My wife adores me, my kids love me, my grandkids shower me with kisses, and I'm getting better at, liking myself. So whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to let fear ruin my life.
Dying alone. I think my greatest fear is being forgotten. Not being able to let my loved ones know how I really felt about them or really knowing how they felt about me.
I don't like public speaking, but that's not it. I think it's dying. Yeah, it's a fear of dying. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. Maybe it's denial, but I know I can't control it. But it feels kind of like if I think about it, well, I'm afraid it'll get here quicker.
Well, I think we all fear the unknown. That's only natural. But thinking about something you dread won't hasten its arrival. I mean, I remember when I was 14, and all I could think about was turning 16 so I could drive a car. Thinking about that never sped the clock up, nor will thinking about your inevitable funeral.
Consider this. You don't want to think about your death, and neither does your family. Is it fair to make them face your biggest fear? Of course not. And you'll find that pre-planning is the perfect way to probably not beat your fear, but help your family face your fear of death.
Now, I'm sure it won't come as a surprise to you that I've heard all these questions and comments before. In fact, if I hadn't, it would be kind of strange. And as we covered earlier, we all know we're going to die at some point. Many say, "No, I just don't want to talk about it." Well, fair enough. But how will you be remembered? And more importantly, how would you like to be remembered? Yes, Richard.
The wife thinks we should plan our funerals, but I just don't want to deal with it. Let the family do it.
I agree. By all means, let the family do it. But do it with us.
If you think about it, pre-planning just means your family and friends will not have the burden of making difficult decisions when you die. They're going to be emotional, distressed, or maybe financially unable to deal with the situation.
Well, I think it's all about pre-planning. My parents planned their funeral before they died, and as I look back on it, I think it's the best thing you can do with your family. In fact, it's probably the best thing you can do for your family.
Yes.
Jake, that's my husband. Well, we've talked about it, but for some reason we've just never moved ahead on it. I guess we just didn't see the big picture of thinking it through. But I've got some answers now, so we're going to start to talk about it.
So here's a chicken and the egg type question. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, so this is the question. Who is the funeral really for? Is it for the deceased or for the living?
Who cares? I'll be dead. Cremate me and bury me in the backyard.
Yeah, when I was younger, a lot of guys used to say that, just dump me any place. You know, I don't think they really meant it. Well, not about the cremation part, because a lot of people are doing that, but I think they just didn't care. But I think all of us here care. It's just kind of hard to face it.
I know a lot of people who plan to be cremated, but cremation or burial doesn't negate the necessity for remembrance or closure for a grieving family. Cremation is just one way of disposing of a body. Your family and friends still want to celebrate your life.
Let's go back to the original question. I think the funeral is for the living. It sets the tone for the friends and family. I know how I lived, and I think I'd be happy if I were remembered in the same way that I saw it.
I think we all have some idea of how we want to be remembered, and I'm beginning to realize that planning my funeral with my children, whenever that day comes, will help assure that my wishes are honored.
Pre-planning your funeral is the most important part of life's last transition. It guarantees your wishes will be met and doesn't put the planning to your family during their most difficult and emotional time. James, what do you think about that?
I don't mind planning a funeral, and I've got plenty of insurance.
Well, that's what my sister thought. The problem is if you end up in a nursing home at $4,000 or $5,000 a month, it doesn't take long until you're broke. You know, Medicaid may kick in, but not until you've depleted all your assets. My sister thought her insurance would be enough to cover her medical care, her funeral expenses, and an inheritance. But what really happened is they had to liquidate everything before the Medicaid would even be qualified.
Actually, it's worse than that. They target your home, your savings account, everything else prior to qualifying for the Medicaid program.
Yes, and something else good to know, if you are applying for Medicaid, you may already have an irrevocable funeral plan or burial plot, neither of which will count as an asset for Medicaid purposes.
After working a lifetime taking care of my family, I just don't want my family to have to pay my funeral costs. Any money I leave them is a gift, and for the kids, it's a birthright, and I don't want these expenses taken out of that.
As funeral prices increase, pre-planning protects these precious assets because your funeral expenses have already been paid for, and in many states, guaranteed. Now, another thing to consider is that some insurance is term and not permanent. Pre-need is whole life with a limited time pay. Well, let's face it, the life insurance money is for your family. Why should you have to deduct the cost of a funeral from your family inheritance?
Well, that's all well and good, but we're on a budget, and I'm not sure I can afford to do the right thing, even if I wanted to.
I've got friends over the Golden Hour Center. They pre-planned theirs. They found an affordable way to get it done. They feel a whole lot better about the process.
There are many pre-need plans available. Now, money should never be an issue, but sometimes it is. So you have to ask yourself, is the cost of your funeral something that you want to leave to others, most likely family or friends?
Well, my parents had a plan in place, and it was easy and affordable. Just a couple of quick questions about their health and their wishes for their funeral arrangements. And then they had an easy monthly payment plan, and it really gave them a lot of peace of mind.
That does make sense. Knowing that my loved ones don't have to plan or pay for my funeral. And they'll know that they're making the arrangements just the way I wanted them.
And planning ahead for your own funeral could result in you spending less money than if those decisions were made after your death. So my daughter couldn't resist the temptation to spend more on funeral services than she needed to. She loves to shop.
It's a woman thing. But you're right, that situation can be eliminated by planning ahead.
Everyone here has probably developed a sense of independence that your parents never dreamed of. Would that change your funeral plans?
Well, yes. It's not going to do me any good to plan a funeral. I don't know where I'm going to be when I die. Now I'm retired, kids are gone, nothing really keeping us here.
You know, my folks traveled around a lot at the end, and it didn't change anything. Their wishes were still seen to.
She's right. Your plan should revolve around those who will be there to enjoy it, to meet their needs and their requirements for closure. And besides, the policy is mine. I can take it with me where I go, right?
Yes, it's your policy, and rest assured it's fully transferable. You can take it to another town or another mortuary. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight. Are there any other comments? Well, then you can see that life is just one transition after another. You take one logical step, and then another logical step, and so on and so on. So the next step is to actually take action on deciding about pre-planning your funeral. It doesn't hasten the day, it doesn't hurt you, it just prepares you. And now, isn't that a comforting thought? What I'd like to do is hand out these funeral planning booklets so you can get an idea of all the ways that your friends, family, and loved ones can celebrate your life.